Please welcome Commercial AIP Lead at Palantir, Jack Dobson.
Good afternoon. I'm Jack Dobson, Commercial AIP Lead here at Palantir, and I'm so excited to welcome you back to AIPCon. One of the founding tenets of Palantir is driving decision-making at the front line, whether it's the front line of the Ukrainian defense, empowering the army's warfighters with Titan, or the front line of manufacturing, the hospital ward, the construction site, and beyond. One thing is common across all deployments of Palantir: our customers' ambition to not just unify data or enhance visibility, but instead to fundamentally redefine decision-making at the operational level. Across government and commercial, these are some of the most time-sensitive, mission-critical operational environments where privacy and civil liberties are of paramount importance. We've been powering institutions in these environments for 20 years, and the same can be said for AIP. But what does it actually mean to deploy AI to your operations? How can AI actually drive higher quality decision-making? Well, let's start with the set of AI tools you may be familiar with today. In reality, the concept of AI is nothing new, but the advent of these large language models and the consumer-facing explosion of this technology has redefined what we mean by AI and the opportunities it presents. But here's my take. We've all been fundamentally missold a technology as an interface. We're all very familiar with the chat experience, and there's no denying it's an intuitive, natural way to interact with data and existing platforms. But this very quickly breaks down. These features work by drip-feeding my context to these models, and while this can be very useful, we can't drip-feed my entire enterprise. My enterprise is also not just text and tables, it's also logic, decisions, and the experience of my operators. And even as we extend this to multimodal capabilities where models can operate on more types of data and take a greater variety of inputs, we're still fundamentally constrained by the human operator. We're giving our people better tools, but we're not fundamentally improving the methods and the velocity of decision-making. So what if we instead bring the models to the enterprise, not selectively providing context to these models, outsourcing bits of my context, my enterprise, to an endpoint, but instead infusing our operations with these models, empowering our operators beyond just additional tooling, and fundamentally transforming the way that decisions are made. So let's break down that decision-making process and see where AIP can begin to transform it. At their foundation, any decision can be broken down into the data and the context used to inform it, the reasoning and the logic that turns that data into a prediction or a recommendation, and the actions that enact the necessary changes to turn prediction into reality. And looking at that basic AI tooling, decisions which ultimately shape the business, they're being assisted, maybe even sped up to some capacity, but we're still hitting constraints. Giving 100 users the ability to chat with their PDFs, you're still dealing with siloed processes, disconnected context. And when it comes to making a decision, well, making a decision in reality means updating the multiple systems, applications, and dashboards that need to reflect that decision. So the alternative, we break AI out of this traditional tooling, infuse AI at every step of the process, and fundamentally change the way that decisions are made. Your human operators are still incredibly valuable. Let's not limit them to asking questions and interfacing with chatbots. Instead, AIP proactively gathers context required to inform a decision, irrespective of the source system and the technical complexity. Then AIP logic proactively interprets and reasons with this data based on logic that you define to come to a recommended action. And then, either automatically or with human approval, the required actions are orchestrated across systems and workflows that need to be updated to ensure your operators are enacting the optimal decision. This enables higher quality decisions informed by better context and more dynamic tooling, with greater capacity and throughput enabled by automated AI agents, proactively supporting your operators. This is decision-making redefined. And we're beyond the point of even talking about first movers. Many global organizations are already setting and repeatedly raising the bar for AIP. Within supply chain, Eaton, a major manufacturer in the US, manages inventory across 300 sites, 32 million parts using AIP, which dynamically recommends substitutes and solutions to shortages based on context scattered across over 70 ERP instances. They've seen a 25% productivity increase in just the first few weeks of their AIP deployment. And then Fujitsu, joining me on stage at AIPCon, alert systems and demand forecasting powered by AIP resulted in an annual cost reduction of over $9 million in just 3 months of work. And across healthcare, nurse scheduling, treatment optimization, and invoice management, all accelerated by AIP. Also taking to the AIPCon stage, Tampa General Hospital, they've seen an 83% reduction in patient placement time. Then across broader operations, over the last 3 years, Sompo have seen a $60 million improvement in profit, expecting an additional $100 million improvement through building with AIP. And then building the future of infrastructure with Jacobs, we've seen on this very stage how AIP mixed reality is fundamentally transforming how decisions are made on the front line. And then beyond, workflows that hit every enterprise, serving customers and transforming internal processes. At CAS Investments, they've reduced their new lead processing time by over 90%, enabling them to handle 100 times the number of leads with the same number of resources. That is transformative business growth powered by AIP. So let's recap the state of the world today. My operators have valuable tools for accessing and interpreting data, but how does that actually map to decision making? The fundamentals remain the same. A web of teams and operators working with disconnected context and tools, enacting decisions across siloed systems, losing all traceability as to why a decision was made, and more importantly, whether or not it was even the right one. Adding more AI to the mix only adds to the chaos. If my human operators can't make sense of this landscape, how will my AI chatbots and co-pilots? So let's leave chat behind and instead look at how AIP transforms decision-making in my organization at every layer. Of course, it starts with data, but remember, we're not drip-feeding context and bits of my enterprise to these models. We instead build a data foundation which we can infuse with AI. This is our ontology. AIP Pipeline Builder allows me to use both LLMs to build out my pipeline by simply describing what I'd like to do with my data, but then also inject AI into the pipeline itself to process data with an LLM of my choice. This is AI as both the co-pilot and the engine working in parallel. In just a few clicks, without a line of code, I'm injecting LLMs into my data pipeline to, in this example, perform semantic chunking, breaking large documents into sections with the context of the workflow that I'm building. That way I can serve more concise, relevant context to downstream models and human operators to inform decisions, rather than just passing them hundreds of documents to sift through. And then finally, we build the output of this process into that ontology, becoming a foundation on which we can build applications and workflows and enterprise logic. So let's start off with that logic layer, the kinetics of decision making. AIP logic allows me to build LLM-powered functions that can orchestrate AI agent operations across the platform, connecting not just the data of my ontology, but also my enterprise logic and actions, enabling full spectrum automation. This allows me to move away from waiting for user input and asking questions, instead instructing AI agents on how to operate against the context of my enterprise. And alongside those instructions that I provide to my agents, I also provide tools to augment the LLM's capabilities and further connect it to my enterprise. These tools allow the LLM to query my ontology, accessing real-time context, but also perform custom functions and actions that are unique to my business. I can inject external logic in here too. I can have an LLM run ML models, forecasts, maybe even other LLMs to perform more complex, context-specific tasks. And all of this built on a platform that can dynamically switch between commercial, open source, and custom models with just a couple of clicks. Seamlessly switch to cheaper, faster models as they become available, and then optimize for cost and performance by building KLLM workflows in just a few clicks without a line of code. And of course, logic isn't just for building. I can also test, debug, and build my intuition around how an LLM is interpreting my prompts, allowing me to iterate and improve before releasing to production. Then AIP Automate allows me to take my AIP logic and seamlessly set it up to trigger based on a variety of criteria that I define, with the resulting actions either requiring human review or being executed automatically. I always maintain that granular control. Dynamic retry settings ensure I always have a safety net for my high-frequency automations, and then batch executions allow me to quickly deploy a new logic automation across hundreds, thousands of inputs from my ontology. So logic enables rapid LLM deployment, with Automate quickly scaling this across my enterprise. But with that increased scale comes the importance of version control, testing, and evaluation. Well, the answer to this is AIP Evaluations, a comprehensive suite for testing and evaluating LLM functions. Evals allow me to test my logic at scale across a variety of structured and LLM-backed evaluations, then also monitor these in production to see ROI and iterate on the performance of my functions. Evals provides both the guardrails to safeguard my LLM operations and the means to rapidly improve upon my deployment. So we have our data foundation and the logic wielding that enterprise context to drive processes. But the human in the loop remains critical. Therefore, we need a decision-making front end. Workshop allows me to again leverage that ontology instead now as building blocks to build operational, user-facing applications, allowing operators to review the output of our AIP logic and approve or feedback on recommendations. Workshop allows me to go beyond just dashboard and instead build operational applications in just a matter of clicks, again, without a line of code. And then those AIP integrations allow me to tightly couple my operational applications with my enterprise logic, enabling human AI teaming on the front line at scale. But in your organizations today, how many of these decisions are being made purely based on experience or tribal knowledge? Data that's not captured in any source system or even in note form. This data exists purely in the minds of your operators. Well, for the first time, we can now actually capture that context and operationalize it with our AIP agents, establishing a feedback loop back to the AI, compounding upon the data asset, and improving our processes with every decision. This is governed feedback loops with AIP. Operator feedback and actions resulting from an AI recommendation is captured in the ontology, allowing us to build workflows and logic on top of it. So now, instead of blindly feeding this context back to our agents, now we can review and control this feedback, ensuring that only good practices are fed back to our logic via those ontology tools. No retraining required. So for the first time, I'm managing enterprise tribal knowledge like code, allowing me to operationalize and govern context at scale. So we've built an AI-infused data foundation, evaluated and automated our custom logic, provided front-end workflows for our operators, and established feedback loops to compound upon all of this over time. But the final step, how do we actually enact these decisions, orchestrating the myriad of actions across my data sources to keep everything in sync? Well, my actions are all set up with webhooks. I can now write back to SAP, Salesforce, any system that needs to be updated with the result of my decision. And most critically, AIP is updating those systems of action, the sources and applications that my operators are interfacing with on the front line on a daily basis to inform their next step. Actions become the connective tissue of enterprise automation across all systems and all platforms. And these actions are the same actions that I can integrate into my AIP logic. All of the tools that my human operators are using today can be seamlessly made available to AIP agents as well, without any additional configuration. With just a few clicks, the scale of my enterprise autonomy is increased exponentially. This is the Palantir standard architecture for AI-enabled decision-making at scale. This is how AI orchestrates and accelerates the enterprise. And the art of the possible has never been closer. Build with AIP now gives you all of the tools that I just ran through, combined with builder components, apps, and workflows, just one click to install. Building your first AI product has never been easier, so what are you waiting for? And of course, the experience doesn't just end there. To take your new workflows to new heights and get hands-on with Palantir engineers, book your AIP bootcamp. There's a reason that we've run over 1,400 of these globally. We've seen everyone from operators to architects to CEOs come together at a bootcamp to build the bleeding edge of AI in just a matter of days. Every workflow you've seen on this stage started at a bootcamp. All you need is a date to get started, and we'll handle the rest. So this is everything you need to deploy operational AI workflows, building on a platform that's designed to adapt as the models and the underlying technology improves. You all have the unique opportunity to build the bleeding edge. And if you're not building, you're not winning. So let's get started. Thank you very much.